That helps if I press the right button, doesn't it? Thank you, Camilla, and thanks very much to our friends at Powtoon who produced that short video for us. Just to say, at EOCCS within EFMD Global, we are absolutely committed to improving our knowledge of online education, our techniques, our awareness of what can be done. And today's webinar is no exception. Our focus today is on something called asynchronous engagement. So that might have impressed you when you first saw it as a subject, but asynchronous engagement. If I look back on what has been a long career in university teaching, I used to walk into a lecture room, 2 hours, 1 hour or 2 hours of lecture, and then back again to meet the students next week. Now, we weren't too concerned at that time of engaging them outside of the classroom. But in the digital age, actually, because we don't meet our students very often face-to-face, engaging them in that learning when they're in a sometimes a very lonely place is so important. And some of us noticed, even before we got to the pandemic and the emergency lockdown online teaching, that a lot of our students weren't even coming to our face-to-face lectures either. That should have told us something. It told us about the different ways in which they want to learn, the different ways in which they want to engage with subjects. So a focus on how do we engage students, and hopefully we'll be asking our three panelists, and I'll introduce them briefly, asking our three panelists for their insights on this. We have today with us, and if you say hi when I call your name, Dr. Sarah Montano, Deputy Director of Education Digital from Birmingham Business School in the UK. Hi, Sarah. Welcome.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
And next we have one of two providers of tools that will help in this whole area. Hen Aitan, co-founder and Chief Operating Officer of Anoto. Hello, Hen. And last but not least, Jean-Marie Cognet, co-founder and CEO of EOCCS. Hi, Jean-Marie. There you are. They will explain to you their positions on these, and our two sort of friends from the supplier side will explain their products to us, because this is, one of the things that we know we need to do is to create that engagement with our students. I'm going to steal someone else's research now that I heard last week, but this is something from our online teaching academy that EFMD Global runs, and it was some feedback that said, actually, when you look at data, you look at the way in which students approach, or the way we can measure that they approach online courses, it's those who engage from the start and keep up with it are most likely to succeed with the course, and those who wait till the end and try and cram everything at the end. Yeah, for experienced people, that's a logic. We know that, don't we? But those people have less chance of success. It works for some, but not for everybody. So engagement, and I'm going to ask each of our panelists to speak, but first there's a poll to help our panelists. Camilla, if you'd like to launch the poll, we'd like to know where you're from this afternoon. So if you can pick one of those places, we can gauge where we're addressing, who we're talking to. Well, welcome, one person from Asia so far. So mainly Europe, which is not hugely surprising for a Europe-based organization and in the time zone of Europe in the afternoon. So let us carry, and 2 from Africa. That is excellent. Welcome to you both. I've asked our panelists to briefly introduce themselves and to sort of bring up a couple of key points that they want to share with us. So without further ado, I wonder if I can turn to you, Sarah, first of all, for you to tell us your background, tell us your engagement with this subject.
Thank you very much, Keith, and good afternoon, everybody. It's really nice to see everybody here. So as Keith says, I'm Sarah Montano. I'm Deputy Director of Education at Digital for our College of Social Sciences here at Birmingham. And I also teach out of our Birmingham Business School as well. And I've been engaged in online learning for over a decade now, which is quite worrying because time's going really quickly. But I'm also an academic with 20 years experience. And prior to that, I worked in industry. And I think it's that industry background that really gives me my perspective around online learning and how we ensure everything that we're doing is really equipping students for the world of work, no matter where that might be, no matter what our students want to do. So as I said, I've worked in online education for over a decade now. I was part of our team here at Birmingham that was the first online MBA to be given their accreditation by AMBA. So that was quite a novel, that was something that was quite novel and quite unique at the time. And in particular, I've really pioneered digital authentic assessments, again, with that sort of employability lens. And I've been lucky enough to be quite widely published in that area. And I think for me, that's really trying to sort of have this kind of trilogy and kind of bring these 3 things together. Is how do we make sure that we look at our digital content through the lens of pedagogy? And quite often we talk about digital pedagogy. I actually think it's digital pedagogies plural. I actually think in the world in which we inhabit, it's not a one size fits all. But I think perhaps during the pandemic, it was looked at a bit like an online fits all. If we shove them a load of content, then they'll probably learn at kind of some point and it will be okay. And I think certainly as we emerge from the pandemic, we can see that actually perhaps it isn't okay. But also, how do we use whatever learning system that we've got? So, you know, whether we're using Canvas or Moodle or whatever it might be, what's our virtual learning platform? How does that enable us to innovate? And then how do we know that we're delivering really the right content to our students that is going to kind of meet the needs once they leave the institution? So that's sort of the lens at which I kind of view everything. In terms of my observations about asynchronous content. So when I met Keith, we had a very long conversation about this, and I was like, I can talk for a couple of years on asynchronous teaching, so I'll try not to talk for a couple of years and to stick to my few minutes. But I have really 2 key observations. I think the first thing for me is that today learning is everywhere. So as Keith said, it used to be that you walked into a classroom, someone gave you some information and hopefully you remembered it and you reproduced it in an essay or probably in an exam, which might even be like 8 or 9 months later. So you had to kind of really retain that for quite a long period of time. But I think today's students, they're really learning from everything and they're really looking to consume their content in perhaps quite a different way. And certainly wanting that content to look visually quite exciting, to be engaging, but to kind of really fit with the kind of subscription model that perhaps we see more in kind of the consumer kind of world. And that might actually sound like perhaps unfortunate that learning today is everywhere and they're using different methods. But actually, I think asynchronous teaching using our digital platforms, for us as academics, I think it offers incredible opportunities. And if you'd have told me 20 years ago that I'd be an animator, I'm afraid I would have laughed, and I probably would have laughed for a couple of hours. And I would have gone, yeah, but I can't animate because I can't draw. But via the magic of Render Forest, I can produce great animations that really help my students at least get a bit of an insight into some really quite tricky concepts, like, you know, what actually are ethics in marketing, and should I even worry about them? What does that mean for a consumer? So I think it really offers us great opportunities to develop as teachers. And my second observation about asynchronous learning is it really offers students the opportunity to be able to personalize their learning journey. And again, I think that kind of mirrors what we see in, you know, perhaps the, you know, the entertainment sector. We see Amazon doing this. You bought this product, would you like another one? Or Netflix, you know, you watch this, would you like to watch this now? Or if you're viewing this, lots of other people are also viewing the same thing. But it's not just offering them a menu, it's actually really allowing students to play to their strengths and their learning styles. And I think perhaps that was something in the past that we might have been guilty of perhaps not thinking about, because we had quite a very strict kind of mode of delivery. That it actually offers them the choice, but I would say that's a choice within parameters. It's not a kind of free menu, but it's constrained within the parameters. And actually, we can move from this kind of really strict kind of linear approach that, you know, you can only have the content in, you know, from week 3 in week 3. But actually, you might want to kind of condense it. You might want to move around. And it really offers this kind of great flexibility. And I think today life seems to be incredibly busy. I don't think it matters what age you are, that life is really busy, but offering content in an asynchronous manner really meets that kind of flexible approach that we actually all need in life. So Keith, those were my 2 critical observations, and I hope I haven't gone on too long for you.
Not at all, Sarah. And thank you very much for those. Very, very important to remind us where we've come from, and perhaps now turn to, and I'm going to go to Jean-Marie first of all, because I think it's a logical order of these things. Jean-Marie, would I be remiss in describing your product as lecture capture? Tell us what more it is.
Okay, thank you, Keith. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be with you. So I'm Jean-Marie, co-founder and CEO of EOCCS, but I have also a second hat because I'm a vice president of an association called EdTech France. So gathering almost 500 EdTech companies in France, and I'm in charge of higher education. So I have a global point of view on the EdTech landscape, and that's really interesting. So EOCCS, what's that? We do a video platform. We edit a video platform called Nudges. So it's more than lecture capture, and I will explain you why in a few minutes. Because this video platform is embedding interactive features to make pedagogical videos more engaging for the students. So if I'm looking at our customers, what they do, we can see 3 main uses. The first one is lecture capture. So I will record a one-way lecture in an amphitheater, for example, and the students, they will have the ability to play and replay, watch and rewatch as many times they want this lecture after it, before the exam period and so on. In the subway, in the bus, at home, between 2 PlayStation games, we don't know, but it suits their learning styles, and that was Sarah's point. The second use is video lessons. So it's short videos that are produced by the teachers themselves. So you can call it snack content, so some short pedagogical videos to be complementary to the on-site lecture, in-class lecture. So to watch before the class, for having everyone at the same level of knowledge before entering the real lecture, or to watch after to have a global view on the topic that has been studied. And the third use case that I see really exploding right now, so it's more and more used, it's video assignments. So teachers asking the students to not give a PPT, a PowerPoint presentation or a Word document, but to record themselves in video. And I used to say that this is the perfect weapon against ChatGPT, because even if the student has written a PowerPoint or a Word document through ChatGPT, if they have to record themselves in front of a web camera, they have to understand what has been written first. So the two things we can see at EOCCS around engagement, it's first peer-to-peer learning, because at the very beginning we thought that the interactions would be mainly between student and teachers asynchronously. But in fact, when there is a question and answer session around the video, it's more a student answering to other students. And you have a sort of community, a forum, sync with the video, and that's really interesting to see that the students, they are really responsive. When there is a question, they answer it in 5 minutes to the other student, and you have this idea of community. And the second one is student-teacher interactions, but we observe it more in a feedback approach. You know, if there is an assignment or if the teacher wants to give feedback to the students about the material, it's really working really well in this way. And last but not least, I wanted to speak about the personalized learning Sarah was mentioning, because I think tools or platforms such as the EOCCS one, we can provide learning analytics. And that's really important, because in a video, for instance, we know how much time is watching the student. So we know if his learning style is to watch snack content, because after 5 minutes they just leave the video, or if they are watching like 90% of a 1 hour long class, you know. So you can understand how they learn, what they like, and then that's the first step, I think, because personalized learning should be data driven and built on a large data set. So the first step is to gather data, and then we could work on algorithms providing, such as Amazon or Netflix, the right content at the right time for the students.
Thank you very much, Jean-Marie. Thank you. And finally, and so we last but not least, to Hen, to tell us what Anoto adds to this picture.
Yeah, so thank you first of all, everyone, for taking the time. So my name is Haneitan. I'm the co-founder and the CEO at Anoto. In my past experience, I'm actually started as a student, and we built Anoto because of our experience as students, that we feel that, okay, online engagement is missing. And then we thought, okay, what is missing? So it actually comes from our personal problem when we learned online. And then we filled the gap between the physical classroom and the online environment, which was very different experience, the level of support we got. And basically what Anoto does, we are providing online teaching tools and assessment tools that enables in context video engagement. Okay, so it's very important to mention the in context. It's not like a separated activity, it's actually on the content that the students are learning, if it's a video, for example. And very important to mention that all the tools we are providing a bit like Sarah mentioned, as part of the learning management system you're already using. So if it's Canvas, Moodle, or any websites, we're actually providing everything as part of the customer platform. And using these tools, we actually enable organization to engage with learners in a variety of ways. Okay, supporting any educational use case, okay, like for example, can be skill assessment, where a student upload his video and get time-based feedback on his assignments. That up to now, it can be done only in physical classroom, right? When a student is presenting something and we providing feedback, but we need the class, we need that everyone will wait for that. Now we can do that actually online. Like Jean-Marie mentioned, video assignments, okay? We always want to understand the level of comprehension of students while they're watching the content, and not just deliver the content. We need to sense more, okay, of what actually happens after that. But our aim is to basically provide like a set of tools that can cover all of that different educational use cases, and much like the same that we had in the physical classroom. So everything that we have in Anoto, we have like a bit of analog, okay, what we did in the physical classroom. Okay, so for example, if a student have a question during the class, he can just raise his hand, right? Ask a question, learn from it, and all the other attendees also can learn from one another. How we can create the same experience in the physical, in the online environment. And this is a bit of our approach. We are working with the top leading organizations in Europe and US, like Glasgow University, NYU, business schools like Schema and others, but also with big organizations, impact organizations like OECD and UNESCO, to see how we can deliver impactful teaching and learning experience. Our three key observation when we look working with a lot of customers across the globe, it's centered around three things. One, we need to provide tools that create an inclusive and accessible learning environment that actually empowers learners, okay, of all backgrounds and all abilities to achieve the full potential. So in the physical classroom, it's very easy to see the student, to see what he needs, okay, to hear him, to meet him afterwards and provide him all the support we need. Once we moved online, today in the COVID situation, it's impossible, okay, to provide him the same level of in-person support that we did. So we need to see how we can bridge that gap. Another thing is that we need to show a clear data, okay, and this is connected to what Jean-Marie mentioned around analytics, okay, to create the motivation, okay, because, you know, technology is great, okay, but why to use it? Why the teachers need to use it? Okay, they need to have like a clear motivation and vision around, okay, once I use this tool, this is the impact it's going to provide me, okay? Because it requires for them a bit of more work, right, to do, okay? It's not just putting the video. They actually need to create activities. So we always need to see how we can show them what is the impact that this can do for them. And the last thing, of course, in any technology or learning technology, it needs to be simple and intuitive, okay? And it needs to be part of the existing platform. If it's not simple and intuitive, and it's not part of their current LMS, okay? So if you're requiring them to go to a separated website or additional login, you lost them, okay? It needs to be one click away, basically. And these three foundations leading us in everything we do, okay? And of course, because again, we are focusing a lot of time also on Europe, everything needs to be backed up by GDPR and security, okay? Everything needs to be fully secured, fully under control of the organizations, okay? Because we are talking about a lot of data, okay, that is collected, especially like Kate mentioned around AI that we'll talk a bit about later, okay, how AI or generative AI is going to impact learning engagement, because it's going to do, from my perspective, it's going to do a big shift, okay? Like ChatGPT already did. We need to be concerned around, okay, where is the data? What we're doing with the data, and what is the security measures we need to have around that.
Hen, thank you very much. There's a lot to digest there from our three speakers. And I should have said right up front, advertised today was one of Sarah's colleagues from Birmingham, who unfortunately has fallen ill today, so couldn't be with us. But my goodness me, I think our guests that have made it have filled the space admirably. What I'm going to do now is ask our panelists some questions to expand on their what they've just said. And I will invite everyone to either put a question, if they have a question for any of our panelists or all of them, in the chat. Camilla will look out for those and we'll come to those before the end of the session. So I wonder if, I mean, Hen, if I start with you this time, I wonder if you can share with us, given your, the breadth of your customer base, your clients, If you can share with us a good example of where Anoto has been used and that has really seriously improved engagement in this way.
Yeah, I think maybe before that we need to maybe have a quick word around what is engagement, because everyone talk about engagement, but what it means, okay?
Very good point.
Because engagement can mean a lot of different things, and it's a bit of a buzzword like AI, right? For us, engagement, again, like we mentioned, we are a lot of time parallel that to the physical classroom. When we look around engagement in physical classroom, it can be a student raises his hand, right? He's engaged with the content, he has a question, he asking the question, he gets an answer, and all the other students that are sitting in the class saying, oh, I have the same question, or I didn't think about this way of thinking. So they're engaged with that idea, okay, or with that information, okay? So this is for us engagement, okay? So if we take like 2 examples that we have with customers, it's not just around the engagement, but also how we can save time. So one of the examples we have is, for example, Weldon University. Okay, Weldon University using Anoto for consulting courses. Okay, so what a student is doing is upload his video. Okay, and doing an exercise. They're using Canvas for that example. After he uploads the video, he basically has a review, okay, with the instructor, okay, around his presentation and how he did the consultation, okay. Before that, okay, they need to do it in a physical classroom, okay. It means that it's around 100 students. Each student needs at least a couple of like 2-3 hours, to present, to provide feedback, a very long process, okay, to do, okay. And you have like a line, okay, that's student out of student, and it takes like a couple of months, okay, to finish all of that assessment. Once we moved online, now students can upload their assessment quickly in their time, right? They can just upload the video. The instructor can review the videos in his own time because he can do it providing feedback, okay? This is what Anoto provides, provide like in-context feedback for each of the students. So we basically saved around 8 hours per student, okay, on the overall activity, okay? And this is how impactful it enables to have the same level of engagement, okay, the instructor has in the online environment that he already had in the physical classroom, but basically disappeared once we moved online. Another examples we have is with OECD, okay? OECD build a platform that enable teachers all around the world to learn best practices around teaching in the class, okay, like class management, cognitive, of the students. So they curated a lot of high-level videos, production, build a website, okay, that later on we can also send the link. So they provided the videos, okay, but they want to enable the community, okay, to enable the teachers to share ideas, okay, around their experience and what they take from that video. And this is where Anoto comes in when we enable the in-video comments, okay, annotations that we enable. And this basically enable users to lean forward. Up to now, when we talk about video is just play pause, right? There's no any interactive, there's no any reason me as a student to go back to the video content and watch more, right? But once we add in these interactive layers on top of the video, okay, that can enable quizzes, social annotations, etc., we actually enable the students to express themselves, okay, to lean forward, okay, to ask questions, to be conscious of, okay, what other students ask questions. So a lot of times also have a very big psychology side saying, wait, I'm not the only one that didn't understand this content. Actually, this student also didn't understand it. So I'm not alone, okay, in my understanding. And I think when we talk about engagement, actually engagement was built in the physical classroom, right? So instructor from one side, students from the other side, the environment, the in-person environment was engaging environment. But once we moved online, all of that engaging and learning experience basically disappeared. And we need to see how we can bring these capabilities back to the online environment to enable students to express themselves and basically be a more user-centric for that example.
Hen, that is very interesting. Thank you very much for those examples. Sarah, I'm going to come to you now. I know you have some stories to tell about using engagement. Well, share one with us.
Yeah, I mean, I would very much agree with Hen. I think that, there is a kind of critical question as to what even actually is engagement. I mean, certainly if we look kind of at the blunt kind of data, we're like, oh yeah, students kind of like seen that video or whatever. And I think, it's obviously it's far more kind of complicated. That and I think, it is trying to use various different strategies to kind of really speak to the kind of flexibility and again, as Hen said, to kind of make sure that we are really inclusive for our students. I mean, I was just trying to decide what's kind of had the best engagement. I think I've got kind of two. The first one was I created a series of kind of podcasts for my students. So yes, you can take me to the gym as well, and that sort of worked really nicely for students because it gave them a really kind of different way to kind of learn. And that was my kind of top 5. Like if I don't mind what you remember from this week, but these are the 5 critical things you have to and you need to know. And if you don't, you aren't going to kind of pass the assessment. And I think, again, it was kind of really trying to appeal to kind of different styles of learners. Obviously, some people are kind of really, sort of visual. Some people want to kind of take the information in over a longer period of time. So I think it again, and it fits into kind of busy lives. We have a lot of commuter students, for example. Obviously, bandwidth is certainly not great if you're trying to get home on the train, but these are easy downloadable, they're portable, and they can take with you, and they worked a lot better than what I would call a kind of standard lecture recording. And I think absolutely in terms of the very best engagement, I think it Jean-Marie, I think it was you were saying in terms of the assessment, and it was removing what was a face-to-face presentation and creating that into a digital artifact. And we now, 5 years down the line, we now have evidence that it's actually even making a difference to the types of jobs that students are seeking out. So we bring the career service in really closely. They show them, here's a latest job advert. These are the digital skills that you're going to pick up, so that they see it's not just about a summative assessment that gets me my grade, which gets me my degree, but that actually there are skills that I'm going to get here that are actually going to enable me to kind of move on. And I think, I have a daughter taking out their GCSEs at the moment, and talking to her friends yesterday, they are really kind of clear about, what they're doing, where they want to go, because, education has changed, and the importance of kind of education. So, and I think that's what we kind of need to do as well to students, is really show them when they're engaging in asynchronous materials, it's not just for us, it's also what it's going to give you and what it's going to enable you to do when we get into the workplace as well. So I think that's the example of the best engagement. And the students really say that what they like about it is it allows them to bring in different skills. So, for example, I've had students who've had a background in engineering who've really felt like they were able to be part of the team, whereas previously they felt a bit excluded because they didn't have previous business experience. And again, I think it speaks to inclusivity.
Sarah, thank you very much. I was convinced you would have some very interesting examples, and that in a UK context. Jean-Marie, I'll come to you now, and if you can expand on some of the points by giving us a sort of a user case story of where this has really worked for you.
I have 2 short examples in mind. The first one is Radboud University in the Netherlands. So they are recording a huge amount of video. I think it's 8,000 hours a year. And it's more lecture capture, the vast majority. But when you look at the statistics, there is something that is really interesting, is that the average playtime of a student on one lecture of an hour and a half is 65%, which means that when a student is hitting the play button, they will stay an hour on the video. So we often say that they are the YouTube generation, and you will lose them after 30 seconds. That's not true when it comes to pedagogy, when it comes to learning, and when the topic is interesting. That's the first example. The second one is the University of Rouen in Normandy, France. In our video platform, we index a lot of information, what you can find on the slides, the voice from speech to text, etc., etc. And we were questioning ourselves with the customer because we've seen a huge peak before exam in a video from a lecture. So we analyzed it, and in fact, during the lecture, the teacher was saying, "You have to study this for the exam." So the students, they just used the search engine. They were looking for exam, and they just reached this moment to replay this precise sequence of the lecture. So you see, they are engaged with the content. They know how to use the tools. They know how to use them for their success.
Indeed, I mean, it reminds me of the way that the industries that many of our graduates are going into sort of just in time, and this is the philosophy that many are using. I'd say, and it's got to be a qualitative judgment at the moment, but you know, the quality of their output, the quality of what they're learning is not degraded, you know, just because we're using different ways. I'm going to pose another question now, but not before I've said I wish I'd been born 20 years later so that I could actually enjoy some of this in my teaching career, because I teach very, very little now. But some of these ideas are absolutely superb. But I wonder if we can just take each of our, and I'll start with you, Jean-Marie. What is it about today's learners? You've mentioned the YouTube generation. Others have mentioned the sort of the attention span. Yet they are still engaged if we make it interesting. But why do we feel this need? What is it about online education and asynchronous, so out of the classroom engagement with them? Why do we put so much effort into this?
I feel that the students nowadays, they are focused on their goals. So what, for me as a student, what is my goal? To get my degree, to get a job. And the way to reach this goal, they will use the most efficient one. So if they can spend less time in class and be successful by reviewing or viewing the lecture at a moment they want to, they will use this possibility. During the COVID, you know, the pandemic period, they were fed up with video conference. So all the feedback we got is that it was exhausting for them. It was what you can call a face-to-face, even if it's digital, but it was not. It was not good for them. They were like brainwashed after a day of Microsoft Teams or Zoom classes, and so you need to have different ways. So that's the digital pedagogies Sarah was mentioning at the very beginning. You need to change the ways you teach. So in class for very interactive things, out of class for very one-way things, you know, very one-way concepts. And if you blend your pedagogy, you will get more engagement from them because they will reach their learning goal more efficiently at the end.
If you are muted.
Yeah, no, thank you. Sarah, can you help us with that? What's Birmingham University? What's the approach here to the out-of-class student? Why do we put so much effort into that?
I think it's actually just as Jean-Marie says, you know, I think students today, they've just got such a kind of clear goal in mind. I mean, I think there is certainly a UK, well, in England and sort of Welsh context there with the increase in tuition fees as well. So I think that, you know, really impacts on students. They're really mindful of the debt that they're graduating with. So I think they're really kind of, you know, focused on that. But I think the second point I was going to make, sort of aside from that, is actually, you know, it really allows us a great opportunity when we create our asynchronous materials to really scaffold student learning properly. And I'm not sure just going in and out of the classroom kind of, you know, does that, because then students are on their own. You know, you do miss things, you know, it's very easy to miss things. It's very easy to mishear things. You know, some theoretical content really needs a bit of kind of reflection, and it needs to kind of, you know, sort of sink in, as we all know. And I think that's for me is what it's about. It's around that real kind of scaffolding student learning, and then using the digital content in whatever format that you will create, and giving them sort of constrained kind of choice to enable that to happen. And to sort of steal a marketing phrase, to kind of really think about UX and think about the user experience, and, you know, what that kind of looks like. How are the students moving between content? Do we make it kind of really easy for them? And I think fundamentally it's around the ability to be able to scaffold learning.
Thank you, Sarah. And Hen, a sort of final word on this before we go to questions from the floor. And you mentioned in your presentation that you know, your whole company was born out of a student ideal, or student frustrations even. You know, is there more to come? You know, what else do students want from the higher education experience?
I think it's connected to what Jean-Marie mentioned and Sarah, efficiency. It's always to be around efficient, around, okay, the materials. And I think this is also the opportunity that Sarah mentioned. It's no longer going to a physical classroom, being there 45 minutes, okay, that all of us, me as a student, know that it's not fully, you know, utilized around 45 minutes. We can actually do better once we are taking that outside of the class, building like micro-learning or other types of experiences. I think it's a whole new opportunity around not just generative AI. It can be augmented reality, very different ways how we can experience the material, okay, and have that. And I think the point around engagement is not just engagement in the class or in education. I think the core thing everywhere in the world, in any industry, is around how we can get the attention, the focus of the user, okay, to stick alongside the content. If we have seen that on TikTok or Facebook, right, their main goal is how we can create more retention of user in our platform, okay, how we can provide them more good content, more engaging experience to keep them in the environment. So I think this is, it's a bit of a common across all, not just in education, okay? We need to bring more tools that already actually tested in social platforms and bring that inside to the education, okay? Like a bit of educational TikToks and everything around that, playing the new playgrounds that are opening, I think, using technology, so.
Thank you. And I do want to give everyone in our audience an opportunity to ask any questions of our panel that they have. Are there any in the chat, Camilla, or would anyone like to?
No, not so far.
If anyone got any questions for our panelists? It's like looking at a bunch of students on screen. It really is. No, you know, there's a lot to absorb here in what our panelists have been saying, but I'm going to.
Yeah, we have one in chat
one
from Evia. Do you want to repeat your question, or should I read it?
Please read it, Camilla.
Yes. So what other suggestions, experiences, ways to mitigate the negative impact of AI in asynchronous learning?
That's exactly where I was going to go next, because I think our futures in higher education, in digital learning, obviously have got to take into consideration where AI is going. So excellent question. Thank you. Who our panelists would like to tackle that one? Jean-Marie, go ahead, sir.
Sarah, you wanted?
No, you go first.
Okay, thanks. A few years ago, we were saying that online learning for education was not possible. And now we are discussing engagement within online learning. So when people say, yeah, AI will be the end of education, I don't think so. We need to embrace it and to use the best out of it. So what do I have in mind? You have today already, you have quiz generators that are really good using AI. So it means it's analyzing the content, written, spoken, or video, and extracting the key information and creating quizzes to check that the students, they understood the contents. So I think it could be a really good use of AI today. Tomorrow, what will you have? Maybe you will have plenty of tools helping you to design the lectures, to adapt it to the learner, to understand the learning styles, to do personalized learning, so automatically suggest content. Because you can imagine in a future, a student just giving his ultimate goal, I want to be a doctor. Okay, and then there will be a path of content to watch, to learn, to get the degree to become a doctor, thanks to the outcomes on his exams, on the quizzes he will be answering, and so on and so on. In my mind, in my opinion. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Jean-Marie. Sarah.
I mean, I think I'd like to feel quite positive that, you know, we've been kind of teaching in this style for several thousand years. So hopefully there's a few more thousand years are still kind of alive. I don't think there's anything that really will ever replicate that kind of in-person kind of, you know, inspirational teaching. So I think that will always be here. I don't want to look too far into the future because GAI is changing so quickly. And I would say 3 months ago, we were having a conversation around plagiarism. And that's kind of now really rapidly turned to how do we use GAI within assessments. And I think in terms of sort of what we can do, I think there's two things. The first one is really looking at kind of the graduate attributes that we need students to have, and how we can design assessments around those. Now, of course, some of those are going to be knowledge acquisition. That's never going to change. So can we use GAI to kind of help us? But also the other side of that is what we would call the human qualities that employers are looking for, that ability to be able to synthesize creativity, being able to, you know, assimilate information and create a strategy out of it. So I think it's creating assessments that do that, but also actually using GAI for assessments. So that might be for one of my modules saying get get ChatGPT or one of the other platforms to create a marketing plan. Now critique that, look at it from a user experience, test it and identify the failures. So I think it's two, it's employability qualities and it's actually bringing it in, because this is what employers will want. You know, they will want graduates who are GAI conversant and are able to use it to best effect. So we need to see it as our friend, I think, rather than perhaps an enemy.
And Hen, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think from a student perspective, one of the things we're also doing a bit and searching for is co-pilots. Okay, taking the same name from Microsoft and having like a co-pilot for the students. Once the student is going to the online course, okay, he has questions, okay, on the materials. The co-pilot basically can help him with a lot of the basic questions, okay, that you don't need the teacher to be there, okay, because today we're also saying from the other side, we're saying there is too much overload on the teachers, right, to create the activities, okay, to monitor the students. But AI, GAI basically enable us to offload, okay, the ongoing tedious activities, like Jean-Marie mentioned, automatic assessment on video. Of course, in the end, the teacher will decide which you want to keep and which you want to remove. But the generation, okay, the ongoing lower level of support actually can remove a lot of the stress from the teachers to enable them to gain focus again around the teaching and learning and the materials and the authenticness of how we can deliver better content and better use our students. But it actually enables us to better support them. Okay, of course, everything needs to be around control and monitor on the data and everything, but assuming that is covered, I think it's actually will bring us to the next level of learning, like Jean-Marie mentioned, from physical classroom to online, and now it will be basically online empowered GAI, and who knows, basically.
Thank you very much for those thoughts looking into our probably quite immediate future. We have another question. Philippe Henry, are you here to speak your question? Or will you read it, Camilla? Oh, there you are, Philippe Henry. Do you want to? No? Okay.
So I may just read it. So Philippe Henry is asking, how would you differentiate engagement with discipline from discipline?
Right, how would we do that? And I think this is something Hen brought up. You know, what do we mean by engagement? You know, there may have been different words for it in the past, being an organized student, being disciplined, but is it the same thing? Is being engaged, being disciplined in the classroom or in the asynchronous world? Any of our panelists got any thoughts on that?
I think discipline, again, I have a bit of, as a student, I have a bit of a problem with discipline, okay? What it means, it's not something that externally will enforce me to be more disciplined in my learning. I need to have the right motivation, okay, of how I can, discipline is just, you know, it's something that is created of self-motivation, okay? It's not, okay, I will create, this is an assessment, okay? You have to complete it in order to complete the course, okay? I'm not believing in like, you know, like harsh assessment or grading, okay? It needs to come from the self-motivation of people of saying, okay, why, okay? Or what is my current position? So a lot of time we found that when we show a student, okay, his place, okay, compared to the overall class, okay, it's provide internal motivation, say, oh, wait, I need to improve because I'm actually in the lower 10%. So we need to create more tools to how to motivate users to build them the self-discipline of finishing, you know, the class, because in the end, they're going to go to a job, right? And to lifelong learning. Okay, so once they don't have that environment, what will happen next? Okay, if we didn't provide them the basic tools of how to learn and the self-motivation and discipline, it basically will fade out later on. So I think it's more focusing around providing more ways to the students to be motivated and to understand, okay, why I'm going through all of that. And it's a bit of that, basically.
Okay. And either of our other panelists got anything to add to that before we begin to wrap up? Sarah.
I can just add very, very briefly. I mean, I think they are two separate things. I mean, I think there's discipline in terms of understanding academic convention and being able to make sure that, you know, they adhere to kind of the various kind of requirements that we've got. But just as Hen was speaking, before we got to it, as I was writing a note, I wrote the word motivation. And I think that's, for me, it's about sort of stimulating demand. So almost, again, a bit, you know, sort of like happens in industry, but really stimulating demand for that next piece of content. And I think sometimes that's really, we can be really clever with asynchronous, is we can leave them wanting more, which makes them motivated to want to kind of, you know, see kind of what's coming next. And I think it's being able to sort of divorce learning from acquisition of a module grade. And they are very focused on module grades, and it's to try and separate the two, which I think will be work in progress perhaps for a while.
Sarah, thank you so much. Sorry if anyone else got anything other to ask or to answer. We're out of time. I want to thank our three panelists, Sarah Montano from Birmingham, Jean-Marie Cogny from EOCCS, and Hen Aitan from Anoto for their contributions today to this discussion, which, as Sarah said, is going to go on for some time because this is new to us. It's new, and I'm looking at people's registrations. You know, most of you are instructors of some kind. It's not just a different world for our students, it's a different world for us too, and we need to understand a lot more aspects of it. If you enjoyed today, we actually have an annual symposium. It's a hybrid symposium. The live part will be based in Barcelona, and I'm going to ask Camilla to share the link with you for that symposium later in September. There it is on the chat. But if you'd like to join us to take this conversation further and deeper, please, you'll be very, very welcome to do that. We also have an opportunity for mini presentations, what we call EFTO, E8421, 4-minute, 8-slide presentations, giving us your stories. And there's that opportunity in hybrid format in that symposium. Thank you very much once again to the panelists. Thank you, Camilla, for your looking after us. And thank you, everybody, for attending and for those questions that you sent in. Hopefully, we'll see you at another EOCCS webinar in the near future. Bye-bye, everybody.